Okay, Acts 24. How many are in Acts again? Ready to move on to another book. I'm terrible learning. 28. Okay, great. So, here's getting caught in my glasses. All right, so now Paul has been moved to another place, and that governor said that he will talk to him when the other people who are against him, his accusers, have come, right? Or he will listen to him. So, now after 5 days, Ananias, the high priest, came down with the elders and a certain orator named Tertullus. I don't know. Anyways, these gave evidence to the governor against Paul. And when he was called upon, Tertullus began his accusation, saying, "Seeing that through you we enjoy great peace and prosperity is being brought to the nation by your foresight, we accept it always and in all places, most noble Felix, with all thankfulness." So they're talking to the ruler there, right? "Nevertheless, not to be tedious to you any further, I beg you to hear by your courtesy a few words from us. For we have found this man a plague, a creator of dissension among all the Jews throughout the world, and a ringleader of the sect of the Nazarenes. He even tried to profane the temple, and we seized him and wanted to judge him according to our law. But the commander Lysias came by and with great violence took him out of our hands, commanding his accusers to come to you. By examining him yourself, you may ascertain all these things of which we accuse him." And the Jews also assented, maintaining that these things were so. Then Paul, after the governor had nodded to him to speak, answered. So now Paul answers, right? "Inasmuch as I know you have been for many years a judge of this nation, I do the more cheerfully answer for myself, because you may ascertain that it is no more than 12 days since I went up to Jerusalem to worship. And they neither found me in the temple disputing with anyone, nor inciting the crowd, either in the synagogues or in the city. Nor can they prove the things of which they now accuse me. But this I confess to you, that according to the way," Jesus is the way, "which they called a sect," so they called the believing in Jesus Christ as the Son and the Savior a sect, "so I worship the God of my fathers, believing all things which are written in the law of the prophets." What is the law of the prophets? That's the Old Testament, right? "I have hope in God, which they themselves also accept, that there will be a resurrection of the dead, both of the just and the unjust. This being so, I myself always strive to have a conscience without offense towards God and men." So he strives to have this good conscience with no offense, doing no offense to God or men, right? This is the struggle of good over evil. This is our job, to try to do what's right, but at the same time try not to judge others, right? That's offensive to God. We are not the judge and the jury based on their religion and so, I'm not talking about if someone commits a crime and has to be brought before the judge and you're required to judge someone based on a crime on this planet. I am talking about people who judge others based on their belief in God, and they try to say what God's judgment would be on those people, right? "Now, after many years, I came to bring alms and offerings to my nation, in the midst of which some Jews from Asia found me purified in the temple." Oh, sorry. neither with a mob nor with tumult. They ought to have been here before you to object if they had anything against me. Or else, let those who are here themselves say, if they have found any wrongdoing in me while I stood before the council. Unless it is for this one statement which I cried out, standing among them, concerning the resurrection of the dead, I am being judged by you this day. But when Felix heard these things, having more accurate knowledge of the way, he adjourned. He had more accurate knowledge of Jesus, right? He found out what Jesus was about. He adjourned the proceedings and said, when Lysias the commander comes down, I will make a decision on your case. So he commanded the centurion to keep Paul and to let him have liberty, and told him not to forbid any of his friends to provide for him or visit him. And after some days, when Felix came with his wife Drusilla, who was Jewess, he sent for Paul and heard him concerning the faith in Christ. Now as he reasoned about the righteousness, self-control, and the judgment to come, Felix was afraid and answered, go away for now. See, when he reasoned after Paul talked to him, right? And he started reasoning about righteousness, self-control, and judgment, Felix became afraid because he understood that, yes, prophecy was being fulfilled and that Jesus Christ had come and that Paul was doing this job in order to do the job that Jesus asked us to do, right? To teach people about Jesus and to bring them closer to God. And in that, Paul's explaining judgment, and he's reading these things and explaining them, like he said, from his father's law, which was the Old Testament, right? Because the Old Testament was written long before the New Testament, right? Go away for now. When I have convenient time, I will call for you. A convenient time. Meanwhile, he also hoped that money would be given to him by Paul, that he might release him. Therefore, he sent for him more often and conversed with him. So he's hoping Paul was going to give him some money so he could release him. But after 2 years, Porcius Festus succeeded Felix. So then Felix was gone, and there was a new one. And Felix, wanting to do the Jews a favor, left Paul bound. Okay, so 2 years, huh? Now when Festus had come to the Festus, that's the new one, right? When Festus had come to the province, after 3 days he went up from Caesarea to Jerusalem. Then the high priest and the chief men of the Jews informed him against Paul, and they petitioned him, asking a favor against him, that he would summon him to Jerusalem, while they lay in ambush along the road to kill him. But Festus answered that Paul should be kept at Caesarea. So, I've been saying it this whole time, and now I've forgotten how I'm going to say it. Caesarea, yeah. And that he himself was going there shortly. Therefore he said, let those who have authority among you go down with me and accuse this man to see if there is any fault in him. And when he had remained among them more than 10 days, he went down to Caesarea, and the next day, sitting on the judgment seat, he commanded Paul to be brought. When he had come, the Jews who had come down from Jerusalem stood about and laid many serious... Oh, sorry. I'm very tired. I didn't sleep good last night. And laid many serious complaints against Paul, which they could not prove. While he answered for himself, neither against the law of the Jews, nor against the temple, nor against Caesar have I offended anything at all. But Festus, wanting to do the Jews a favor, answered Paul and said, Are you willing to go up to Jerusalem and there be judged before me concerning these things? So Paul said, I stand at Caesar's judgment seat, where I ought to be judged. To the Jews I have done no wrong, as you very well know. For I am an offender, or have committed anything deserving. For if I am an offender, or have committed anything deserving of death, I do not object to dying. But if there is nothing in these things of which these men accuse me, no one can deliver me to them. I appeal to Caesar. Then Festus, when he had conferred with the council, answered, You have appealed to Caesar? To Caesar you shall go. And after some days, King Agrippa and Bernice came to Caesarea to greet Festus. When they had been there many days, Festus laid Paul's case before the king, saying, There is a certain man left a prisoner by Felix, about whom the chief priests and the elders of the Jews informed me, when I was in Jerusalem asking for judgment against him. To them I answered, It is not the custom of the Romans to deliver any man to destruction before the accused meets the accusers face to face and has opportunity to answer for himself concerning the charge against him. Therefore, when they had come together without any delay, the next day I sat on judgment seat and commanded the man to be brought in. So you can kind of see that he's trying to Festus, he really is trying to make a case for the Jews. He's saying, the guy was left in prison. I told him that, it is not our custom for this, that he has to face his accusers and say for himself. But when I told the Jews to come, they came right away. It's been 2 years. They came right away. You can see that he's making a case for the Jews already. Therefore, when they had come together without any delay. When the accusers stood up, they brought no accusation against him of such things as I supposed, but had some questions against him about their own religion and about a certain Jesus who had died, whom Paul affirmed to be alive. And because I was uncertain of such questions, I asked whether he was willing to go to Jerusalem and there be judged concerning these matters. See, he was expecting them to have different accusations against Paul, not what they had about their religion. But when Paul appealed to be reserved for the decision of Augustus, I commanded him to be kept till I could send him to Caesar. Then Agrippa said to Festus, I also would like to hear the man myself. Tomorrow, he said, you shall hear him. So the next day, when Agrippa and Bernice had come with great pomp, and had entered the auditorium with the commanders and the prominent men of the city, at Festus' command, Paul was brought in. At Festus's command, Paul was brought in. And Festus said, King Agrippa, and all the men who are here present with us, you see this man about whom the whole assembly of the Jews petitioned me, both at Jerusalem and here, crying out that he was not fit to live any longer. Now, we know that when these people are determined still after several years to kill Paul, it is because they are afraid of the power of what he is teaching, right? And they know that this is a true thing because there would be no fear of it if it wasn't true. But when I found that he had committed nothing deserving of death, and that he himself had appealed to Augustus, I decided to send him. I have nothing certain to write to my Lord concerning him. Therefore I have brought him out before you, and especially before you, King Agrippa, so that after the examination has taken place, I may have something to write. For it seems to me unreasonable to send a prisoner and not to specify the charges against him. Okay, so that is 15 minutes. And yeah, I'm going to stop because if I don't, it's going to turn into... So, we're leaving off with... Agrippa is listening to him next, right? And Beatrice, is that who it is? Bernice, or I forgot. But anyways, doesn't matter. Okay, thank you. Have a nice day.